Hi, it's Annette Ba'u, host of the Millionaire Insider. Thank you so much for joining me. For over 30 years, I've been advising and researching the top 1% and 2% of millionaires to learn how millionaires with amazing lives do business, life, and money differently. And now I'm providing you practical, easy to implement insights so that you can take your business and your life to the next level. And today we're diving into operating above the grid to achieve your desired result. Please click subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified of episodes, including bonus episodes. We really appreciate that, and we also appreciate that you go down and comment. Today's episode is sponsored by our very own Mindset Mastery. You can go to millionaireseries.com/mindset and access our Mindset Mastery training. Let's face it, if you want to take your business, your life, or your money to the next level, you've got to master your mindset. That is the first step. And in this free training, I show you how, the different steps you need to take and exactly what you need to do. So I really encourage you to access this free resource, millionaireseries.com/mindset. The materials and intellectual property in this training are copywritten by themillionaireseries.com. The information we provide is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or provide investment, financial, tax, or any type of planning or healthcare advice. By listening to this material, you agree to consult with your own team of advisors and to review your situation. You also agree to hold millionaireseries.com and its affiliates harmless for any results achieved or not achieved. All international copyrights are reserved. So for today's show notes, you can go to millionaireseries.com/118. For all shows and show notes, go to millionaireseries.com/MI. For some of you that want to upgrade your clients, you want to get more ideal, profitable clients, you can access today's free resource, how to get your share of the affluent women's market. Go to millionaireseries.com/AWG. So if you want to tap into more ideal affluent clients, you want to go get this guide, you can go to millionaireseries.com/AWG. So I want to begin by diving into the history of the Worth Barometer. Early in my research and my career, I noticed that there were two camps of millionaires and affluent clients and even non-millionaires, those with amazing lives and those with miserable lives. And it became my passion and fascination to determine what's the difference. Why do some people have awesome lives and others don't? And what I came to discover is that we all have a worth barometer, and our worth barometer is our beliefs and our self-esteem, and it's the number one indicator of our success or lack thereof. And so I became passionate about it. I then started teaching people all over the world about the worth barometer, and people would come to me and say, well, how do I determine where my worth barometer is? So we went back to our research lab. We started looking at how can we measure where a person is? I mean, wouldn't it help a person to elevate their worth barometer if they knew where they were? So that's what we did. But if you want more insight on the worth barometer, which is really important to understand before you dive into the grid, you can go to millionaireseries.com/105YT. So let's dive into the grid. So we've got three levels of the grid: above the grid, at the grid, and below the grid. So above the grid is just like a higher vibration, a higher energy, love, peace of mind, clarity, joy. People are responsible and accountable above the grid. They're really calm. They've got that peace of mind that we all want. Their emotional state is optimistic and positive. Their primary emotions are calmness, peace, joy, inspiration, motivation. They're very optimistic. They show up in an understanding and non-judgmental way. They're able to accept different views. They're often empathetic. They take ownership and responsibility. They're focused on their vision, where they're going, what they need to do to get their results. And they live in a drama-free zone. Now, granted, no one's ever always above the grid. This is the optimal, but they get it. They are able to really get into that space when we're in our, as a lot of people like to say, zone. And what it allows them to do then is to attract more of their ideal clients. So being above the grid is really powerful, really important, not only in our personal lives, but in our business. So then at the grid, they understand the concept of the grid, but they rationalize or justify their actions. I personally have found people that are at the grid more dangerous than people below the grid, because people at the grid get this, they just don't do it. And then they wonder why they're not getting results. So if you happen to be at the grid, then just start doing different things so that you can go above the grid and attract more ideal clients and really be living a life you love. So if you're at the grid and your goal is to get above the grid, focus on the solution and just start paying attention to where your energy is. Are you operating from more of a peace of mind, a can do, will do, or do you find yourself going below the grid? Just look at that. Don't overanalyze it. Don't drive yourself crazy. Sometimes people get really triggered by the grid because they're living below the grid. So if you're living below the grid, you're going to have challenges. You might have money, but you're going to have challenges in your relationship, in your health. It's just not ideal for most people. So below the grid is where anger, worry, blame, fear, gossip, win, lose, lose, win. I'm either a bully or a victim. I lack ownership. I lack responsibility. It's just not ideal. And possibly, more importantly, you're going to attract people that are also below the grid, which is not ideal. So the primary emotions below the grid are fear, worry, anxiety, depression, agitation, annoyance, lack of patience, and they show up in a very victim, lose-win, or bully, win-lose. It's never a win-win. They're very judgmental. They never take responsibility or ownership for anything they do. They lack focus, they lack accountability, they don't do the work. There's always some drama going on, and a lot of times that drama is just an excuse not to do what they need to do to get the results they want. Nothing good comes below the grid. Now, that being said, there are going to be times when we are below the grid. If you lose a loved one and you're depressed and upset and sad, that's normal for a period of time. It'd be abnormal to be above the grid. I don't even want to go there, but not that you're happy that someone died. But you get my point. We want to be aware of that. The problem is that when we spend most of our time below the grid, it's never optimal, because what happens is we are attracting problem people, problem situations, our business and our life reflected, and it's just not ideal. Even if we have money, even if we have big deals here and there, it's just not optimal. It's not consistent, it's not predictable, it's not enjoyable for most people. When you're above the grid, you're really conscious. You're operating from your conscious mind, which is your prefrontal cortex. You are thinking about what you're saying, what you're thinking, and if it's not serving you, you're going to shift your results. Your subconscious mind, meaning your Worth Barometer, is going to be elevated. It's going to be healthy. That's your self-esteem and belief. So it's really important that we spend time elevating our Worth Barometer and operating above the grid. So the process to operate above the grid, first of all, we want to understand the process, then we want to remove obstacles, then we want to execute. So let's dive into these. So the first thing as far as the process is, we have to begin with our thoughts. Are we thinking thoughts that are going to get us to where we want to go? And we've got to know where we want to go. Are the words we're using supporting us? Is the action we're taking supporting us? And then are we getting the results we want? If we're not getting results that we want, we've got to go back to the drawing board and look at what's missing and where we need to shift. We also need to really be conscious and present, focusing on what's happening right now. We've got to monitor where we're at and then refocus if we're not getting our results or if we find we're getting derailed. We got to determine when we're at our best and what gets us off track, meaning we all have triggers that can pull us below the grid, and then we have insight that can help us backtrack. We've got to get clear on that. Now, again, I just want to reiterate, no one is always above the grid. That would not be normal, and no one is typically always below the grid. The key is, where do you spend the majority of your time? And once you know this process, you're going to just find yourself calibrating, where am I right now? Or something sends you off. It used to send me off when somebody would cut me off in traffic, and now I just slow down, I say a little prayer, and I say, let them get where they're going safely. And I just kind of smile at it, and I kind of smile back and I kind of laugh, thinking, I can't believe I used to get really annoyed by that. The other thing I do that's really helpful when I find myself going below the grid is I look at myself through a third eye, and I'm like, really, Annette? What about that's bothering you? Why is that upsetting you? And it really helps you to just get centered and to get back on track. Now, one thing that can also help immensely is to breathe. Breathing into the count of 8 through your nose, hold it for 8, and then release for 10. That is so powerful because it brings us back to the present moment where we can be conscious. We can look at something in a bigger picture and realize this is probably not going to matter in a year or in a week, so let's just let it go. Whereas when we're coming from that limbic brain, that primal brain, that 2 million year old brain that's there to protect us, the littlest things become, major roadblocks. We don't want to let that happen because nothing good comes from that. The next thing we got to do is we got to remove obstacles. And the first step, again, is to really understand that it begins with your worth barometer, your beliefs and your self-esteem. One of the most powerful affirmations is, I am enough. Most people at a core level don't believe they're enough. We've got to accept ourselves. We all have flaws. We all have God-given talents, and we've just got to realize that wherever we are is where we're supposed to be. That doesn't mean we need to be happy where we are. We can always be progressing to get to the next level. A lot of times people will say, oh, I can't do this. Really? Why not? It's a belief. What if I do it and I fail? You don't think we all who have achieved amazing success haven't failed? I mean, failure is part of the process. And when you can look at it and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, it makes it a little more lighthearted. It makes it a little bit more easy to swallow. And it's like, really? Like you're going to really let this determine where you're going to go with your life? Let it go, move on. There's a reason that the window in our cars are so big and our rearview mirror is so small. We need to be focused on what's ahead of us, not what's behind us. And that says so much about our lives, right? We need to be focused on what's ahead of us, not what's behind us. A lot of times we have barriers, and one of the things I want you to just get clear on is life is short. It goes by so quickly. You think if you have kids, when they were little and then they go to being grown up and in college, it just goes by so quickly. A lot of times people have beliefs that are just like, where did they come from? Oh, I'm worried I might make more money than my spouse. Well, hopefully your spouse would be excited if you made more money, or prospecting so hard, or business is hard, or we have the wrong economy, or we have the wrong leaders. All those, my friends, are just excuses, and we've got to get rid of those. And the sooner we do, the sooner we can be on the road to really getting the results we desire. So the next thing we got to look at is removing obstacles. So a lot of times people will be so focused in on either the world economy, our country's economy, who's in the White House. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't follow your causes and you shouldn't stand for your values, but the issue a lot of times I see is that people are more focused on what's happening in the White House than they are what's happening in their house. What we've got to do is we've got to focus on what we can control and what we can impact. And when we get so focused and obsessed with stuff out there, whatever it is, the economy, whatever it is, what ends up happening is we don't do the work we need to do to get the results we want. And then we end up, wasting our time. Sometimes it's social media. We're just scrolling mindlessly. We're not focusing on those high value activities. We're more focused on low value or non-value. Or we're not taking ownership or responsibility for what we're doing or need to do. So I really encourage you, again, don't beat up on yourself. If you find you've been operating below the grid, as I shared, I did for several years of my life. If you don't know there is a grid, it's normal to operate below it. But what I want you to do is just start documenting what percentage of the time are you spending above the grid and what percentage of time are you spending below the grid. And then just look at incremental improvements. It doesn't have to be that you are just going from horrible to amazing. Just start incrementally improving. That's the goal. And the real goal is the peace of mind and the enjoyment you're going to get as you start showing up above the grid. You remove fear, you remove worry and anxiety, and all of those things that bring us down and can really operate in a space of love, light, joy, peace of mind. So the next thing you got to do is you've got to execute. So to execute, the first step is you got to get really clear on what you want. You can never get what you want if you don't know what it is, and most people get caught here. They know what they don't want, they don't know what they do want, so you got to know that. The next step is you got to visualize what you want, get really clear on it. Then you've got to program it into your mind. If you need help programming it into your mind, you can go to millionaireseries.com/106 and dive into how to program it. Then you've got to evaluate it, and then you've got to celebrate it. All of those are absolutely critical. So there's 3 levels of your why when you're getting clear on what you want. The first one is all about I, where I live, what I drive. And the next one is like my community, my business, my family. The third one is where you become unstoppable. That's the legacy you lead. And what you want to do is you want to get really clear on that, because that's where you jump out of bed even when you don't have to work, where you have more money than you could probably ever spend in your lifetime, and you're so motivated to have an impact on people's life. The next step is to envision what you want. What does your ideal life look like? You want to get it in writing, And you want to make sure that you can see it in your mind's eye. What does it look like? You want to feel it. You want to smell it. Whatever will make you really see what it's like. Ideally, you're going to visualize it. You know, studies show that visualizing something and actually experiencing it, your subconscious mind can't tell the difference. Those things are so important when it comes to achieving your goal and getting really clear on what you need to do. You then have to program it. And one of the most powerful steps to program it is to affirm it. So I earn how much money? I earn $1 million in the year with ease. Or I weigh how much with ease. Get clear on it and then affirm it, visualize it, see it, and then if you need help, more help programming it, go to millionaireseries.com/106. The next thing is to evaluate it. You want to look at what worked last month, what worked last quarter, what about last year, what didn't work. Knowing what I know now, what should I do differently? What do I need to change? You've got to know your numbers, you've got to know your ratios, because then you can start creating processes and you can start creating procedures and steps that are going to allow you to consistently produce the results you desire. The problem with most people is they have no idea what their numbers are, their ratios are, and they want different results. That's insanity. So we've got to take the time to know our numbers, how many calls we make before we get an appointment, or what we need to do in our financial lives. We've got to know the numbers so that we can determine what we need to do more of, what we need to do less of, and how we can best get the desired result we want. The next thing is you want to celebrate it. Now this is something I see especially a lot of high achievers forget to do. Low achievers probably do it too much, high achievers not enough. But what we got to do is we've got to determine a consequence for achieving our goal, or a consequence if we don't do the activities we need to achieve it. But how are you going to celebrate? What is your next big goal? Are you really taking the steps you need to motivate yourself and inspire yourself to get to the next level? So success is not an accident, and one of the most valuable lessons I've learned in my journey is that success, a lot of it, is boring and mundane. And the key is that we know where we want to go, we determine what we have to do, and then we just do it, even if we don't feel like it. And that, my friends, is going to have such an impact on your life, as is celebrating it once you get there. So now let's dive into a recap. The first thing is you've got to understand the grid, and you've got to understand where you're operating the majority of the time, and then just monitor it. Don't beat yourself up. If you find, gosh, today I spent about 70% below the grid, tomorrow can you spend 50% or 60%? Just start looking at incremental improvements. If you have a really bad day, don't beat yourself up. We all have bad days. That's part of the journey. You then want to work on elevating your Worth Barometer so that you can live above the grid. And the more you can incrementally improve it, the better. You got to understand the process. You've got to remove obstacles and excuses, and then you've got to execute. That, my friends, is so simple. You just got to do it. I have people that literally, like, I used to spend my entire life below the grid, and now I spend about 75 to 85% of my life above the grid. That's what it's all about, my friends. And I love my life. Right? You want to love your life. So please remember to click subscribe and ring the bell. Today's show notes can be found at millionaireseries.com/118. All show notes can be found at millionaireseries.com/MI. The sponsor for today's workshop is Millionaire Mindset. You can go to millionaireseries.com/mindset. This training is going to teach you how to really get your mind in the right space so you can achieve your results, whether it's in your business, your life, or with your money. millionaireseries.com/mindset. And our free resource today is how to get your share of the affluent women's market. You can go to millionaireseries.com/AWG. If you want more ideal, profitable clients, start here. millionaireseries.com/AWG. So again, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today, Operating Above the Grid. I'm Annette Ba'u, host of the Millionaire Insider. All international copyrights are reserved. Now, it wasn't that easy. I intentionally waited to provide you insight on the grid because I know it can be triggering. But we've been through now several episodes and I knew you could handle it. And more importantly, I really wanted to give you this research and this insight so that you can help you to take your business, your life, and your money to the next level. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Bye now.